Hey, hello everyone, this is Sergei from Ushanka Show again, and today we're going to have a story time. I will tell you a story about my experience of becoming a Soviet proletariat, becoming a Soviet worker. This story got inspired by this postcard that was sent to me from one of my subscribers, Eric, who lives in Oregon, and he is a big collector of stamps. So even on his envelope, he always tries to put some stamps that relate to the topic of his present. And there's the address, Ushanka Show, if you guys want to surprise me with some kind of Soviet-related items. So anyway, he sent me this postcard of AN Antonov 24 passenger airplane. Because my father worked at that factory, at Antonov Factory, back in the 70s and 80s. And I worked there too for 3 months. So this is my story. So I said I got inspired because I actually was inside of this airplane at the factory in Kiev. And this postcard looks like it was made in 1989. So anyway, we're talking about 1991. So I finished high school. We didn't call it in Soviet Union high school, but 10th year of school. We went to school for 10 years, if you remember, in Soviet Union in 1988. And then I went to college, but I didn't really have a choice because of my poor eyesight. I already made a story about it. I tried to go to become a sausage engineer, to be, into meat packing kind of industry, because in Soviet Union, as closer to food as my cousin Tanya told me is better. But because of my poor eyesight, I was told I'm not qualifying to become a student in the Institute of Food Production. And two options I had in Kiev, because I didn't want to move to other city to go to college, was either go to Polytechnical Institute and become engineer of electronics, or become engineer of welding, which was bizarre. Like, I already have bad eyes. Why do you think I'm okay to study and work on welding? Svarka. So that's how I I managed to get in. It was a pretty tough entry test, but I passed. But I never had any warm feelings about electronics and all that schematics. So I struggled. First year did okay, second year struggled. Then basically I also had surgery on my eyes done. So maybe that affected, not really, but I kind of blame on that. So I took a break from college, and I had still wanted to do something. So my dad used his former friend's connections at Antonov Airplane, got me a job at Antonov Aircraft Factory for 3 months. So I started working on March 10, 1991. So that's the last year of the Soviet Union. And I worked till June. And I actually, in my diary, I kept a couple notes about my experience. And as I said, it was for the very first time I actually was among workers, blue collar. I mean, my family was blue collar, but my mother was really strict and my dad was kind of strict too. So we never heard any bad language. No one spoke bad, cursing, no cursing in our apartment. My friends were not really intelligentsia, but it's kind of pretty decent level. Not white color, not blue color, gray color, I guess, I don't know. So in here I found myself among basic workers, and I actually had a note. Let's see, I actually chuckled when I read it. So that's when I became a worker. Let's see, I said, я уже рабочий. Впервые впечатление так себе, но личности кругом мрачноватые. So I'm a worker now. My first impressions are so, but people around me are pretty depressing. This is the same proletariat that you promise them sausages, cigarettes, and vodka, and go ahead, they're gonna do another revolution. So it looks like I was quite shocked. Just to be in that environment, is just people were cursing all the time, taking smoke breaks. I work with my godfather, same spray painting area. So there was a cech, so like a department, like separate building where there was a final painting of airplanes. That my dad did it, and his friend, my godfather, remained. So I worked there, but I didn't do spraying. I just did whatever errands. So I just kind of like a helper. But I was quite just depressed to see just the level of people there, just cursing, all the conversation about drinking or sport. During lunch break, they'll smoke, eat, and play checkers. And then there was this really bizarre side effect. So I worked there for only 3 months. In about a month, all my friends started complaining that my language became foul. Like, dude, can you please stop, basically saying dropping F-bombs? Of course, in Russian language, we don't say F-bombs. We a little bit different, but like F your mother, but still. So it just working there and being kind of cooking among this in that soup, my language started slipping, and I started cursing way more. I still kind of kept it under control among my parents, because my mom, man, I could get in trouble even being 20. But among my friends, like, it was interesting that they coached me. They actually like, dude, you have to watch your language. Why are you cursing so bad? I didn't start smoking, but that was the bizarre just experience, being a nerd, having good grades in school and being among kind of nerds, and then getting to college, and suddenly I'm kind of dropping down to the lower level, and I see all these young people just really, like, I don't want to say the word primitive, but they tell us me stories, just how he's like managed to have sex with girls at work. Tell me about this one chick that worked at the cafeteria, and he said that she had STD, like honorrhea, like really bad, like she had to wear almost like a diaper because she was, and it's like really, it's against the law if you have STD to work in the cafeteria, like in the food service, but she did, and then he knew that she's had STD still. He took her home, used the condom, but he had sex with her. Just the stories were just so bizarre. It's just this kind of totally different level. It was quite shocking. So I did it for 3 months. It was quite an experience. I was happy when I was done. Kind of several unique experiences I had at the Antonov factory. I met a guy, and he was just like normal dude, older man, pretty shy. And I discovered that he was father of one of the most popular Ukrainian singers at the time. Her name was Irina Bilik, and I was like big fan of her. Not like had a crush. I like her songs. And sounded like I'm talking to her father, and he's like, yeah, she's performing, singing. We don't see her home much. She's doing great. And so that was first time I kind of had this little kind of celebrity kind of, I work with the father of Irina Bilik, so that was pretty cool. And once again, we worked at a ton of factories. So I have also, I wrote it down that for the first time ever, so that happened on March 19, they let me sit inside on the pilot spot in the Antonov 24 airplane. This one right here, not this one exact plane, but this model. So I went inside and I did some switches and just kind of pretended I flew. So that was really neat. And I think some of those airplanes at that time, so we're talking early 1991, they were sold to Iraq. But since there was the war against Iraq in 1991 and sanctions, airplanes were sold, but they couldn't be delivered. So I remember seeing, I believe, I don't know, I looked it up, and maybe not AN-24, but there was a plane called AN-32. It was kind of unique airplane, was designed specifically for export. They didn't use AN-32s, Antonov 32 in Soviet Union, but initially it was made for India. They needed airplanes that could land high in the mountains, so they had to have powerful engines and short, landings and takeoffs. And then Iraq purchased some, so they managed to make about 360 AN-32s airplanes, and I believe some of those were AN-32. Maybe I was inside of AN-32, not AN-24. So yeah, that was kind of another exciting experience. And of course, there was a girl. She was the girl that kept the track of our working hours and days, and gave us money. The Russian was a Tabelshitsa, Natasha, and she was kind of cute, and we just had conversation. But on the day when I was checking out, signing off all my documents, when it was time for me to leave, that was June 10, 1991, several times she told me, like, hey, if the things won't work out with you with college again, they'll be great if you come back. And she repeated that 3 times on that day. So I just was a slow nerd, never clicked that maybe she liked me a lot, and just she was too shy to say anything. I was just like, yeah, okay, yeah, if college won't work, I'll come back, no problem. But yeah, that was an interesting experience. I said, I remember I was quite shocked to discover actually like the workers, the real blue collar environment, to be around, how they just all smoke, all drink, all curse. Still nice people, they shared all the stories how they were stealing stuff, stealing paint and do other things. So that was pretty wild. But yeah, in 3 months at Antonov Aircraft Factory, my language skills went down. I started cursing, using foul language, and it took me a little bit to recover. But I said I didn't pick up any bad habits, didn't pick up any STDs, no smoking, no drinking. But it was a good experience. I'm glad I did it. And another just click with me at that time. This is 1991, so I watched a lot of foreign movies, and Jackie Chan, Bruce Lee, Bloody Sport with Jean-Claude Van Damme, remember? And it's always about kicking and martial arts. So I got into started learning all these different kicks. And one time I just walking through the factory, and suddenly I feel like I need to do this. There's a name for this kick when you swing your leg and hit it to the side, right? Just kind of like this. But I wasn't warm up or anything, and I just did this white kick, and I felt horrible pain in my sciatic nerve, and I think that's what I damaged. And it took me, my gosh, about 5 years to recover. Like, I couldn't sit for a long time, which was horrible when I went back to college. You have to sit for hours in the classroom, and like my leg would just fall asleep and start burning. I couldn't sit in public transportation or anywhere. I had to stand up because I would be not comfortable. And it took about 5 years for that nerve to heal. And actually my cousin, who was in the physical education and fitness, he told me you need to work it, like do exercises like kicking your legs back to rebuild muscles, and maybe nerve will restore. And I remember there was one moment I was riding the bus, and I was like, realized my leg is fine. I'm sitting and it doesn't hurt. So that's also happened during my work at Antonov Factory. So yeah, that was great experience. Was short enough, because otherwise I could roll downhill. But yeah, that was, this my diary. Just first thing I said, yeah, people around here they look pretty different, quite depressing. So anyway, thanks again, Eric, for your present. That was awesome. A nice surprise. Here they claim that, doesn't say how many they made them, but yeah, they made. That was one of the most popular passenger airplanes in the Soviet Union, and pretty safe because of the wing shape. Like, even if you lose both engines, you still had enough way you can glide and land without engines. So that was considered pretty safe plane, but it was super noisy. So I remember never flew on Antonov 24, but I was inside on the pilot seat. So, well, I hope you guys enjoyed this short story. If you did, please don't forget to like this video, and I will talk to you soon. До побачення. Goodbye.